What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the 7th episode of our F750 CrewCab build series. In the previous episode, you saw us mock up and install that monster of a coolant system, which means in today's episode, we're actually, and I pinky promise, actually going to bring in our cab, set it back into place, bring in our fenders, and start mocking up body panels and our grille to fit this monster of a powertrain under the hood. So there's nothing to it but to do it. Stay tuned. All right, you guys, very first thing we need to do today is we need to clean up this mess we've created. We've kind of neglected the shop for the past couple weeks just to keep chugging along at the truck. And so for us to get the cab back into place, get the fenders down, get all the body panels in place and figuring that stuff out, we need to clean up everything and start tidying up the shop. So with the power of editing, there, much cleaner. Everything's out of the way. We kind of got a clean slate to bring the cab in now. So that is next up for what we are doing. We're going to bring the cab into place, get it mounted back onto this chassis. So there's nothing to it but to do it. All right, you guys, update time. We got the cab back into place. It's pretty surreal seeing what it used to look like, and now we have a whole new drivetrain in here. And anyways, so remember we had to remove the cab just to get the transmission into place. There's no way to keep the cab here mounted and get the transmission in place. And luckily we did, because on the far right-hand side over there, we are actually hitting the cab to the transmission. So there's this little flange right here. This one's good, but there's an exact replica of that on the other side, and we're hitting it. So yeah, that obviously causes some issues. Kyle and I were talking about a couple different options we had. One of them was we could start grinding down the firewall and the transmission tunnel. But the easiest solution, and one that we're gonna go with, is we are just gonna order some body mounts and lift this up 1.5 inches or 2 inches. Now, people might give me some flack for that, but here's the deal. It really won't affect anything because we have to build a custom front end for the fenders and the grille and everything anyway. So by moving the cab up, it'll give us plenty of clearance to the transmission and the undercarriage of everything. It will give us a little bit taller of a vehicle, but at the end of the day, it's kind of what we have to do. Now remember, we have to fab up the fenders and all the mounting systems up front anyways, so it doesn't affect it. We're not trying to bolt on factory parts to factory mounts. So that's not going to affect anything. We have to custom make things anyways. So that's the update for now. We are just going to probably block it off with something that is close to 2 inches so we can kind of keep going with everything else. But yeah, we're going to kind of brainstorm on our next move on this, and we'll let you guys know. So we decided we're just going to keep chugging along. That was Kyle's decision, just because he made a really good point. We still got to make sure the fenders clear everything, so it doesn't matter the height of the cab. We still have to make sure it's all going to fit into this engine bay. So up next is we are actually going to reinstall our fenders. So we have our inner fender and our outer fender, and we can kind of start figuring out where exactly they're going to land over here, and where our grille is going to start, things like that. So that's up next for us. So there's nothing to it but to do it. Let's get after it. All right, you guys, fenders on very, very roughly. Yeah, the mic's facing the right way, Kyle. Sheesh. You do something once around here, then he never forgets. He's got a steel trap of a mind. Anyways, we got the fender very loosely on. We just have it a couple bolts on. Obviously, body lines don't match up 100% or anything like that, but
Just that one.
yeah, honestly, if you look at that line with the hood, it's pretty nice. And then it's like, So the scallop of the dent side. Anyways, the scallop of this dent side is obviously off, so we got to work on that. But we kind of want to just keep tossing one thing at a time on and kind of seeing how it fits with everything else. So that way we don't get ahead of ourselves by putting everything on and then having to pull everything off just to adjust one little thing. So we tossed the grill back on. Obviously, it's looking like Mater off of Cars, you know, with that buck tooth. But I think it's going to go for it, doesn't it? Look at it. Guys, tell me in the comments if this looks like Mater or not. Anyways. So I think with some trimming up, this grill's actually going to work pretty well. Obviously, this bottom piece right here is mainly what we're getting caught up on, and we're going to just take that off. We put it on it for just namesake when we put the coolant system on. So yeah, and that's another thing. We don't want to get too crazy because we have to raise the cab a little bit. So we're not going to cut into this or do anything that's going to be permanent just because we don't know if it's going to be permanent or not. So next up is we're going to jump to this other side really quickly, toss it on.
Open the hood. Show opening the hood.
Oh yeah, we'll open the hood again.
Oh, you're good.
I think so. Look at all that. All the space. Obviously, there's an inner fender that comes about here, but we're going to have so much room for activities under there. We have so much room for everything we need, all the battery boxes, all the coolant. Yep. So next up, we're going to jump to this other side, toss this fender on. Obviously, it's not going to be 100% bolted on, but it gives us a good idea of kind of where the fender is going to lie. Right here, we're going to bend it back and tie it back into the cab. Probably have a mount where the two factory bolts are already. That way we can bolt this fender onto it as well. So, so far it's looking really nice. I'm really surprised with how well everything's going. So we're going to jump to the other side and get Kyle another beer. All right, you guys, new day here, which means the parts I ordered a couple days ago have arrived. That's kind of been holding us up to keep going on test fitting and mocking up the fenders. So here we have some nice new body mounts. They're polyurethane. I figured since the cab's already up, might as well replace them. The ones that are here currently aren't terrible, but like I said, since everything's up, they're exposed, might as well do these so we don't have to do them in the next year or two. So the next thing we have that are here are these pucks, these body lift pucks. And I know body lift lifts are kind of frowned upon. They kind of have a negative association with it. Unfortunately, that was pretty much all we could do here because for the sake of the transmission and the coolant package fitting, we needed a little bit more space. So here we have just 2-inch pucks. It's not going to be too dramatic. All right, you guys, update time. So we went to go put our new body kit on and our lift, but we ran into a little issue. These are a hair bit too big for the pre-existing factory holes. So essentially what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to bore it out a little bit and make them fit to these. I purchased 1976 CrewCab body mounts. But Kyle just informed me that I probably got the wrong one since the cab and the bigger cabs are probably a little bit different than just your factory ones. So I'm gonna learn this the hard way. We're gonna make this hole a little bit bigger and hopefully they fit. So we'll let you guys know here in a second how they look. Alright, you guys, it's a new day back here at the shop. You guys just saw us pretty much put the new 2-inch body lift pucks on here. We actually ran out of daylight and we were using shop lights and we kind of got over it real quick and it was getting pretty late. So next up what we're going to do is we're actually going to move to the front of the truck and do the exact same thing you guys just saw. We're going to jack it up. We're going to bore out the factory mounting holes, and then we are going to put our new mounts and our new 2-inch spacer pucks in there, and hopefully that'll give us the ride we need. Alright, you guys, before I do the front 2 body mounts, I wanted to give you a quick little rundown on how we bored out these holes to make them wider for our new body mounts. So essentially what's the issue is we are using a hole saw and we don't have a step drill, which means when you're trying to bore out a hole just a hair bit bigger, there's nothing for the pilot bit to attach to, which keeps your hole saw centered. So what Kyle did was he cut this out. It's a perfect diameter of our hole saw. So what essentially this does is it goes into your hole and it doesn't allow it to move side to side. It's essentially just a spacer. And with the spacer in, your pilot bit can now officially go into this, centering it in your hole, which will also center your hole saw where you need it to go. And the end result is these bad boys just pop right back into place, and you kind of go on from there. Alright, you guys, we got all these fenders dialed in, which means next we need to worry about our old radiator core support. Now obviously we are not going to be able to use it as is because we have a massive coolant package right here. So first thing we have to do is we're going to cut out all these little ridges right here, that was for the donor truck grill and things like that. And then after that we're going to test fit this guy. We are essentially hoping we can cut it out. We just measured, it's about 10 inches from the center of these holes over, down, and kind of cut out the inside of all this. And then hopefully it'll kind of just fit right over it and mount up to our factory locations. If not, we'll have to do some more modifications, so we'll let you guys know. But there's nothing to it but to do it. Let's start cutting. Alright, you guys, Kyle just grinded off all these, sanding them down so that way we're not catching our arms, and obviously they need to be sanded down for the final product anyways. So that's all nice and smooth. And what I'm working on over here is the core support. So essentially, I know it looks like it's going down at an angle, but it's actually because this line right here, if you can see, jots in. So it's a little deceiving to your eye. So what we're gonna do next is, I marked it all out. We're gonna come in and cut this whole center section out. Like I said, hopefully that gives us enough space to where we can essentially just shove it over and everything works out properly. Now, probably won't happen like that, so we're prepared to either cut more of this out or kind of trash this idea and mock up our own thing. But we'd like to use this just because all the factory bolting it does to these fenders, it would save us a lot of time. Instead of having to figure it out ourselves, we can just essentially use that, modify it, and hopefully it works. So there's nothing to it but to do it. Let's cut this bad boy out and give her a test fit. All right, you guys, we just got finished cutting this guy out. Essentially, it's pretty rough right now. Obviously, we got to clean it up, but we want to test fit it first to make sure that we are at least close to getting it fitting before we do any final cleaning up. Obviously, we got to take off some places we couldn't get to because when we cut out the rest of the core support, there's a lot of things for structural support and things like that that were kind of a pain to cut around. So what we're going to do next is we're going to actually toss it onto the truck, see how it fits, and if we need to take off any extra material. Hopefully not, but we'll let you guys know. All right, you guys, new day here. You might be able to tell by the red shoes. I'm like Tiger Woods on a Sunday. Anyway, here we have our radiator core support that we cut out last night. We took out the middle of everything to get it around this coolant package. Now our goal is to essentially match up the bolt holes to the factory fenders so that way when the hood closes we can use the factory latch and everything is essentially where it is with just a massive hole throughout the middle. So right now it does not work perfectly. These holes are a little bit off. The radiator core support is a little high because of right here, the coolant package, this cross member is in the way. So essentially what we're going to do now is we're going to cut into this a hair bit. Probably have to notch it out just like that. And we're hoping that will give us enough space to bring down the whole radiator core support and be able to bolt it back up into the factory fender bolts that it came out of. So there's nothing to it but to do it. We're going to start getting cutting and hopefully this works out and it'll be almost like factory. Here you guys go. Our core support fits. Now we had to take off a lot of material, especially considering that the original came about here, came down, and there's a bottom piece that went across to tie everything in together. So when we disassemble everything, what we're gonna end up doing is just shaving this all the way around, tying it into there. Same thing on the other side. And then what we'll do is we'll box it in underneath, so that way everything is still firm. We still have a lot of rigidity for, obviously, support. And then when we come back here, we are going to add an overlay piece that will attach into here. So that way we're really tying everything in together, and it's just as strong as the original. But we got all the bolts in, everything's fitting perfectly. Obviously the hood latch should technically fit because we're attaching the factory holes from the core support into the factory fender holes. So the hood should be able to fit perfectly fine. But up next, we're actually going to start test fitting the grille. We know we're gonna have to cut out some of the cross members throughout, but we need to get it going on a game plan for that. So in the meantime, I'm gonna check out pictures from Kyle's trip to Alaska.
That's my buddy.
Oh, nice. And we'll let you guys know what we come up with, and there's nothing to it but to do it. All right, you guys, we had to clean up the shop before we could cut into this guy. We have to start making some more room for everything that's going on. So our plan with the grill, we're gonna cut out everything where the grill naturally boxes itself in or frames itself. So essentially we're gonna cut down these natural lines right here, right here, right here, right here, top and bottom, keep working our way over here and down that side. What our game plan is for this is to essentially cut out as minimal material as possible, test fit it. If it rubs, come back, cut some more out, kind of rinse and repeat that process over and over and over again. What we don't want to do is cut out too much of the grill material and then just kind of be screwed. I do have another grill from a 76 from our donor truck. I don't know if you've seen those videos. That will work with this, same color, same white, everything. And it's actually in better shape. So if we mess this one up, we do have a redemption grill just in case. Obviously we don't want to just cut into this, ruin it, and move on to another one. So that's our course of action. We're going to cut out a massive rectangle out of here and put it up to the truck, see how it fits. So wish us luck, and there's nothing to it but to do it. All right, you guys, update. So we ran into the issue that we assumed we were going to run into, which was this lower portion of the grill. It obviously doesn't fit with the massive coolant package that the 6.7 Power Stroke has. Up top, we actually fit really well. There's tons of space. I can fit my whole bunch of my hand underneath. So there's tons of space over there. On the right-hand side of the truck and the left-hand side of the truck, there's obviously tons of room around the coolant package. So the only issue is this lower portion. We had mentioned taking off this guy and putting it somewhere else, like in the back of the cab, things like that. or brainstorming where else to put it. But even with removing this, we're not gaining a ton of space, maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And well, I'll show you. We need a lot more than 3/4 of an inch. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm actually going to cut it out right here and right here, and allow us to be able to fully mount the grill into place and up against the fenders. That'll give us an idea of exactly how far out the coolant package sticks from the grill and from the body, and we can kind of make a game plan from there. At the end of the day, I think Kyle and I just agreed we're just going to make a custom grill for this, which will essentially angle out and wrap around, give us that extra space we need. We'll tie it into the top of the grill so everything looks like it's factory, but when you look lower, it'll have more of a bend to compensate for the larger coolant package. Now, I don't think you'll ever be able to notice that because our bumper will obviously be sticking out, and then our grill guard that we will build will also kind of hide that. So as long as we make the top and the sides look seamless and look like a factory grill, I don't think you'll ever be able to notice the bottom bend around the coolant package. So there's nothing to it but to do it. I'm gonna chop these out, get this grill installed, get this front end buttoned up, and call it a day. So stay tuned. All right, you guys, we got the grill in place. Obviously, this isn't its final resting location. We have body lines to match up. We have things like that. However, for the sake of figuring out where the grill sits in correlation to the coolant package, this will work. It's close enough on each side, bottom and top, with the hood down, everything. So what I went ahead and did was I did leave a little bit of material here instead of just cutting it straight down, because I figured we can always go back and cut more off, or if we want to attach a lower piece of metal from side to side, which we are going to do, having a little bit more area to work with will probably be beneficial when it comes time to do that. So, but the consensus has come back and we still have quite a bit of room to make up. So what we're going to do is we are going to remove this, find a new location for it, which at the end of the day is no big deal. All that means is we have to A, run longer lines, and B, figuring out the fluid for it because of the longer lines to keep the pressure and things like that. So get that out of the way, and with that gone, we will have adamant, we're very persistent, we will have adequate amount of space to run a grill across the face and cover the coolant package. The idea is to have it coming off of these scallops per se from the old grill and start it right here. It'll just come around, bend nicely. The grill does have a slight curve to it up top, so what we will do is we'll attach it up underneath here along that whole entire line and have it come down here. We'll have to figure something out right here to make it look natural with these bends. And then the bottom is actually going to have more of a curvature around and meet up over here, and the reason for that is because the coolant package naturally sits at an angle. So we got to make sure the top looks factory and the bottom can be not so factory, but at the end of the day it'll still look nice with the bumper and the grill guard and things like that. So that's where we're going to end it for today. Obviously we don't have a CNC machine, we obviously don't have a laser to cut out the grill, but for the sake of getting the whole front clip back together, the hood down, everything like that, it's been a success. Now we just got to start designing a grill and figuring out where all we want to put that. So that's a project for another day. All right, you guys, that's gonna be a wrap for today's episode. We got everything done on the CrewCab that I wanted to accomplish. We got the cab back into place, we got the hood mounted, we got the fenders mounted, we got the grill installed, which means up next we get to attack the interior of the CrewCab. That's actually why I'm here at the parts truck right now. I have to start making a list of parts that we do and don't have in order to complete one full interior for the CrewCab. So keep an eye out for that interior episode on the CrewCab, and we'll see you guys on the next one.